Hi, so let's take a look under the hood within the Bubble editor. So once you install this template, this is your view. And the way this is built, I'm going to take you through and explain in detail how it looks as an editor. So first of all, we have up here all of the pages and web reusable elements. And this is important because I want to highlight that we have set this up in a modular way. We have page names that correspond with the core data types of the project, and these can be easily changed. Now, we've also used reusable elements. Rather than put everything on one page, we've kept everything wrapped up in small elements that can be very, very easily managed, and these elements sit within the page. So this app is really well thought out and easy to maintain. So let's take a look. We're in the index, and the index is actually really just housing the auth form. So let's go have a look at the auth form. And in here, we have the different groups, and these groups show and hide depending on what you need. Now you can put your logo here, you can change the message. It's completely up to you. So let's go down and have a look. So this form just sits within the index page, and everything here can be easily customized, including removing this text demo user. Okay, let's go have a look at the dashboard page. So the dashboard page, again, you don't see anything because when you sign in, you actually don't want the user to see anything unless they have the authorization to see it. Now, when they do have the authorization to see it, we actually see that there's a condition here that shows the main container of the page. So as we scroll down, then we can actually see what's inside. There's a wrapper there to manage responsiveness, and then we have a number of different elements. So we have the tiles here. Now these tiles show and hide based on user role. So if the user is not actually allowed to see these things, then those things will be hidden. And then that layout just adjusts responsively to allow for those role-based permissions. Now we have down here some buttons, and this is the same. These buttons show and hide depending on roles. And we have our tables. So we have our submission recent activity table. This is visible to clients and to admins and team members by default. And then we have the team overview, which is just for admins and team members. And again, these things are just controlled by very basic conditional logic up here. So that is the dashboard screen. Then we have the client screen. Now what we have is our main group, and our main group contains two views. It contains the table view, which is where our list of different clients are. And we're actually using the table element, which makes management of these fields and changing the table really easy. Then we have the client view. Okay, and the client view is that view only look at the client and all of their forms, their projects, their submissions, and their users. Now, if you decide to edit the client, then we come into the edit view where we can create and we can update details. Now, I should note that all of these groups are actually managed using a URL parameter, which means that you can easily use the back and the forward buttons in the web browser to navigate through the app, which enhances the user experience. Next, we have our projects. Now, as mentioned, projects can easily be customizable to jobs or engagements if that's what you need for your business. Now, in projects, again, we have this group main. We can have a look. We've got our table, we've got our project view, and we've got our edit view. So it's much the same design pattern as the client screen. And then the same thing applies for submissions. So we have our main, we have our table view, and we have our submission view. And within that view, we also have the view and the edit versions of the same form. Now, I should note that all of these pages use these common reusable elements for the alert, for the update, for the filters. Now, there is the ability to send an email to notify the user that we need the client to fill out the form, and this sends them a message to do that from the app. And then we have our common pop-ups like delete and archive off items. This is the same on the client tab, and it's the same on the projects tab. So all of these things are built once in a reusable element, and then the pages call them to keep this a very maintainable and clean app. The last thing is we do have our team, the second last thing, and we have here our main. So we just have our list of users, and this is where we can manage our users. And this is also where we can make changes to that user. And then the last thing is the user settings. So this is for the user themselves to control their own settings. So we can come in and have a look. And you can see here the profile details. You can see here the history. And there's also the ability to edit those things. Some of the fields can be hidden or shown depending on whether the user is of a particular role. So that is a walkthrough of the design tab up here. Behind the design tab, there are easy to edit workflows, which you can look at. And these things can be easily updated for whatever your requirements are. Again, we've followed common naming conventions to make this really easy to use. The next thing is the database. So we have kept the database really, really simple. We do use standard field names like name when you're labeling a record. Deleted, so we have a flag so that deleted records are still stored in the database but no longer visible at all through the app. Things like status. Now this is a option set where the values can be updated really easily over in the option sets tab. We have types. So type is when there are different versions of the same record, and rather than creating a different data type, we just have a type field so we can easily toggle between. And these things are, again, completely customizable to your business by just going over to the option sets and looking for the client type and then just changing these values, adding values, deleting values. So we have a data type for project, again with all of the common fields. Now, importantly, projects and all of the other data types have a client, and this means we can use the client field to restrict down the data to a particular client's users within our privacy rules, which I'll show you in a moment. We have project, and then we have form submission. And with form submission, we can easily just customize our fields by adding new fields. We can delete fields, and this means we can create forms to exactly the requirements of your business very easily. And we can match this up with what's on the design tab. So when we view, when we save, we can see exactly the fields we need. Then we have attachments. This is where we manage our files attached to each submission. Now, files have a reference across in the file manager, and these files are attached to the file submission so that they are secure. And finally, we have user. So the user's details are here, and these can be managed. You can add additional fields should you need. Client users have a client, and this is used for the privacy rules. So let's jump across and let's have a look at privacy. So we do have privacy based on role. So if the user's role is admin or team member, then they can see the screens. Now, if not, then the user's privacy is controlled by the user's own data. So only that user can see their own data. See in the client, we've got the admin role. So our admins can see every client in the database, but client users can only see the data associated with their client. The same pattern follows for projects, and the same pattern follows for form submissions, and the same pattern follows for submission attachments. So as you can see, we've configured these privacy rules in a very predictable and a very readable way, which means you can easily update these privacy rules for later. If you don't know about privacy rules, these are basically ways that you can control user access to the data at a database level, and this keeps your users' data very secure. Next, we have the app data tab where you can come in and you can actually have a look at the data we've already created. So you remember how we created a project, tax return. We didn't upload any attachments. We did create a form submission, and you can come in and look at these records and all of the data that has been uploaded. You can also download these as a CSV. Now this is the developer view or the Bubble editor view, but you can have a Bubble editor user who is your user when you set up the app, and that user can come in and use this. If you have a higher plan, you can also have multiple people working in here should you need. Here are our standard option sets. So we've kept these very consistently named as well. And you can see here how easy it is to add a new option. And then when you do add a new option, what you can do in the front end of the app is you can update the dynamic expressions to reference the options and the permissions that you want. So if you want them to see a field in a form, then you can say, yep, admin, team member, and manager, say you have a new role, can see this field, and you can just update those expressions throughout the app. Finally, we can see our file manager, and what we do is we actually manage the files with privacy rules so that only authorized users can view their attached files, but you cannot access these files publicly on the internet even if you have the URL, but you are not logged in and authorized as that user. The next thing we have is styles. Now we have a design system in place that uses very consistent naming conventions that are easy to follow. Should you ever need to update the app, you can just say, okay, let's use a body medium font and you are ready to go, or a body medium bold. There is no need to be changing these styles within the app and doing custom styles. You just simply go to an element and you select it and you see subheading 2 there. You can change it to whichever style you want. This is also followed through in style variables. So we do have our colors and we have our gradient or our weights of colors. And these things can be easily customized to your business's branding needs. You can also change the app font in one place and that changes it everywhere. I should also add that these fonts and all of the different elements within our styles actually have responsive parameters set up as well. So one thing we really believe in at Momentum is putting your settings on the highest level possible. Some developers, some templates in the marketplace will actually put these things all throughout the app on individual elements, and this creates a maintenance headache. But when you work with a Momentum template or a custom app, you get these things put in one place where you can update it and change it. You don't have to go through and give yourself maintenance headaches by going to have to change this 100 times throughout the app in every screen where it occurs. We do have a set of basic plugins here. We try and use really high quality plugins from the best Bubble agencies and from Bubble themselves. We also don't have too many because we don't want to make the app too heavy with things loading up on the page that we don't need. That being said, you might have noticed that when you're in the app, moving between screens is very, very snappy. And certainly in this app, there are no performance issues in terms of the speed that pages load. So your users can go in here and use the app without any major headaches. Finally, here are the settings. So when you set up the app, you can configure all sorts of things. You can change the name, you can change the different tags and images, the fav icon, and you can basically set up whatever you like, custom domains, app email accounts, so that this template is truly branded as your business. And finally, here are some logs, so you can have a look and see how your app is performing, and you can debug things as a developer should you need to. Finally, if you're new to Bubble, you may not know, but we have a different database for test for live. We can migrate data between these. We can roll data back depending on our plan's retention window. I did this on the free plan, which is what a template must be on when it's in the template library. But once you actually put this app onto a paid plan, you can push this whole app into live. And then if you do need to make any changes, you can do them in test. You can test those changes and then deploy them to live when they work properly. So hopefully this has been a good walkthrough of the back end of Bubble and how this app has been built, so you can see that it is secure, maintainable, reliable, performant, and ready to be customized to meet the specific needs of your business. Please reach out if there is anything in here you don't understand or you would like support and help in configuring. Thank you.